Welcome to this year's UKTV Commissioner session discussing star power. We're going to talk today about the importance of talent to factual and fact-dent formats and whether the key to success lies in securing household name celebs and how UKTV commissions successful shows for popular factual channels that you saw there, W, Dave, Yesterday in Gold. My name's Dan. I'm MD of a really tiny little indie called Harbar 8, but I've been working with UKTV since 2018. I've exec produced 2 series of a factual format, Factual Doc series, Women on the Force, and an upcoming fact-dent show called Dating with My Mates, which we're going to talk about a bit later too. I'm of course joined by UKTV's most dynamic duo. I've been told to say that. Hilary Rosen, Deputy Director of Commissioning and Head of Factual and Factual Entertainment, and Helen Nightingale, Senior Commissioning Editor. But before we go on to fully introducing you to them, Helen did a end credits in broadcast recently, and she says that they call themselves Hinge and Bracket. Does that ring any bells to anybody? No. It didn't to me until I Googled it, and now I'm a bit obsessed. Can you explain a bit about that, Helen?
I have been here before. It's just a joke between us. We've worked together for a long time. In fact, I made a show for Hilary before I even started at UKTV, so that was back in 2015, 14, 15. And we now finished each other's sentences, and so we just call each other Hinge and Bracket. Google it. They're like Edwardian or something. But and we're not Edwardian, just saying. But anyway, I put it in broadcast end credits, and now nobody will let me forget it.
Yeah, I jumped on that one. So anyway, in this session, Hinge and Bracket, Hilary and Helen will reveal the truth behind working with the whole spectrum of on-screen talent from UKTV. They'll be talking about high-profile celebs like Stacey Dooley, Emma Willis, and BAFTA award-winning Big Zoo. And also to real-life heroes that bring hit shows like Inside the Ambulance, Bangers in Cash, and I can't read my bloody writing already. There's so many. So we're going to chat about all of that. And at the end, we'll be taking questions from you all. So do please make the most of this opportunity to pick Helen and Hilary's brains. We're going to start with W today. And it's been a big year for W this year, hasn't it, Hilary?
It has indeed. For those of you who don't know, W is our female skewing channel, which just recently, spring, at the end of March, went free to air. So this was a channel that had sat very firmly behind a paywall and is now available to anyone with Freeview anywhere. So that represents a huge opportunity for us as commissioners and you as producers, because there's the available audience is larger, and we're reviewing what we commission, and we're consolidating and building on what we commission already, which we'll talk about a little bit more. The key thing that you need to understand about W is that it is a female skewing channel. It's not just programs for women. When we talk about W to producers, we talk about a channel that is the viewing habit is the viewer is led by the female viewer, but we're just as interested in the bloke who's sitting next to her, be that her brother, her partner, her flatmate, whoever, her friend. So we're always looking for ideas that will work for our sort of key demo, a woman in there, between 30 and 40, that we are constantly trying to pick the brains of that person. That's many of you in the room, I suspect. What are their fascinations? What are their predilections? What are they obsessed with? What would they come to W for? We wanted this session to be a session about talent, because talent is very important to us, but we wanted to unpick what we meant by that for all of you in the room, because when we talk about talent, we don't just mean the firepower of the hugest names. And the hugest names that come routinely to W are, as you will have seen in the show reel, and if any of you have ever been to any of our sessions, we always talk about Stacey Dooley and Emma Willis, and between them, they are the sort of key faces for our channel. And actually, the stuff that we get them to do for us is stuff that they would not have been able to do elsewhere. Arguably, now that they've done it for us and done it to such a sort of award-winning level, absolutely they'd be able to do it elsewhere. But when we first spoke to Emma about coming and doing midwifery for us, that wasn't an opportunity that was available for her elsewhere. It's turned into a big smash hit for us, but we didn't know that at the time. Obviously, Stacey, we didn't invent Stacey. Obviously, Stacey comes from another place, but we wanted to create an opportunity for her outside of the current affairs world, which was really what she was doing when she came. She then subsequently did Strictly, and now she's much more of an entertainment face, but we were giving her the opportunity to do a sort of looser factual show where what we're always looking for with talent is what's the bit about them that we don't know as viewers. When we go and have lunch with people and we meet people and we have meetings, I think all of us as producers or commissioners are always sort of intrigued and amazed by people. We want to know their backstory, what makes them tick, where do they come from, what did their mum and dad do, how many brothers and sisters have they got, all of those things that are just genuine points of interest for us as human beings. And we know that our audience is really interested in that. So when we're thinking about big name talent on W, we're trying to get behind the facade, the person that we all know from their rather more buttoned-up shows that they might do elsewhere, very serious shows, and then very high-profile shows in another space. What's the edge? What's that bit of that person, their experience, the things they want to do that you don't know about, that we don't know about, but we want to tell the audience? We've got a series coming through. Kirsty Hansen, one of our brilliant commissioners, has commissioned a series with Alex Jones. She's gone into an fertility clinic at King's. It's an amazing series. She's training to be a fertility assistant. It feels on the page, you might think, oh, that's a bit Emma Willis. Yes, and very much no. Again, we get to know Alex in a completely different way, and through her, we hear the most remarkable stories. So big names doing unusual and interesting things that will appeal to our audience is key, but we are also very interested in talent that we don't yet know about and you don't know about. Helen, do you want to speak a bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the sort of stalwart, if you like, the sort of the base that a lot of our sort of 8 o'clock shows sit on are actually pure factual shows. But once again, we just have a slightly different view on them. So we get pitched a lot of observational documentaries, obviously, especially in the female space. But it's the shows that that are different, that feel different, that sort of make it through, because you know we are a smaller channel, and so we have to have something that draws the audience in, and a big name. If you haven't got a big name, what is it? You know, what have you got? And actually, the first time Dan and I worked on a show together, we developed some stuff actually before I started at UKTV. But the first show that we worked on was a show that he reminded me that he pitched me in Bills in Hammersmith. Which ended up being called The Shift, Women on the Force. I don't know if you know, Dan used to be a police officer. He was a police officer for 10 years, is that right, Dan, in the Met? Mm-hmm. And he ended up doing an extremely difficult and actually quite harrowing job. And then I don't think he'll mind me telling you, he then ended up on Big Brother because Ben Frau asked him to be on Big Brother. Oh, did you not? Okay. Sorry. It's a better story. Just go with my
and I don't...
Anyway, he's on Big Brother. So Dan, interestingly, has been on screen and off. He's now a producer, a very good one.
Thank you. Yeah, very kind. I realised that being in front of the camera was much more painful than being behind it. I've actually got a bit of fear coming back from sitting here today in front of people, and I'm actually running a chat with 2 very senior people in telly. How's that happened? I do not know. It didn't come from Big Brother, let me tell you that.
It comes from being a rather brilliant producer. So, Women on the Force, obviously Dan came with a wealth of experience knowing about police officers. But it was when he came to me and said, do you know, it's a long time, can't remember when, since there's been a show that focuses on women.
It was when Cressida Dick became the Met Commissioner, I think, wasn't it? Because she was the first time that ever happened.
Yes, and that's gone brilliantly. But she, it was good at the time. But for W, we saw an opportunity, and Dan and I developed it together. We saw an opportunity to make a show that wasn't just about coppers, but it was very much about coppers, and it was really important to us that we play a fast-paced blue light show. I'm going to talk a little bit about Inside the Ambulance in a minute too, but it also, and it was, I think it was pretty unique. that we saw them out of uniform. So we saw them at home, we saw them making cornflakes, we saw them shouting up the stairs because somebody'd forgotten their homework. We saw them, talking about, sadly, losing babies. We really got right under the skin of these women, while it's all played against a backdrop of blue light, of fast-paced police obstock. Inside the Ambulance, a very successful show for us, been running for many, many years. Brown Bob make it. It's a brilliant show. The USP, it's what Hilary coined, and I hesitate to say it, but I'm going to because I've got the mic. She coined the toffee crisp moment, and it was literally the moment in the cab when somebody says, one paramedic says to the other, what's your favourite chocolate bar? Those moments that let you see the person behind the uniform. So 2 shows, Nurses on the Ward, a very recent show, just TX this year, beautiful show. Obviously, nurses, we saw a lot of, we realised more as members of the public. I mean, we probably know a bit more about it in telly, but we saw more as members of the public, the toll that the job takes on nurses and everything that they went through. And Labour One made an incredible, a beautiful series for W that went out this year. Again, you get a little bit more than simply sort of day-to-day, stuff that happens on the ward. You get a bit more of an insight into it. So W shows, the pure factual shows, we don't want just another iteration of what's on other brilliant channels, Channel 5, Channel 4 and BBC. We want you to come to us and go, this is the W thing. I think this is the W thing. And then you'll get our attention.
I think what's important to say as well on that is that for W, it's about the characters, isn't it? So we're talking about the talent, but actually the women on Women Force, the crews on the inside the ambulance, you get to know them as people as well as the jobs that you tune in to watch them do, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And talent, talent doesn't just mean, you're the biggest name and your marquee talent. Talent is those incredible people who tell those stories, and that's if somebody can tell a good story, then we're interested.
Are you going to talk about Dating with My Mate?
I am going to talk about Dating with My Mate. I was just having a tiny pausette.
Okay. Well, while you're pausing, because we're going to play you a clip of a brilliant new show that Dan has produced. One of the opportunities that free-to-air allows us is to sort of think a bit more broadly about the territories that we want to be in. I mean, Helen's explained that we're really successful in the health and baby space, and I think the audience expect that stuff from the channel. But we are looking currently to broaden, and we're just shooting a show in the Ribble Valley, otherwise known as Wedding Valley, and this is a new doc series that will come out. We're shooting it at the moment. It'll text at some point in the near future. And we've long thought about weddings as the obvious territory and space for a female skewing channel, but we've always sort of noodled and wondered and worried about how we might be up against the firepower of Married at First Sight and those kinds of shows. And I think what we're doing with this show that Kirsty's running and Little Gem are making for us is we're looking at the community, and rather like the community of nurses or the community of midwives or the community of paramedics, we're looking at a community that live in the Ribble Valley, and this place, because it's very picturesque and very, it's Yorkshire, it's absolutely gorgeous. People travel to that location to get married, and a whole wedding industry has grown up in this one place, with dozens of venues and wedding dressmakers and cake shops, etc., bouquets, florists, all the things you would expect for a sort of a wedding industry. And of course, we are very focused on the weddings, because who doesn't love a wedding? But we're really interested in telling the story through the suppliers and the people who are actually getting those weddings up and running. So we're hoping that will be a sort of different a different way of slicing into weddings, and we're hoping that the magic of Yorkshire, which we know works very well for some channels, we hope is going to work well for us too. So that's a sort of new area that we're looking at. I'm not sure we're looking at the moment for dozens more wedding shows, but we're definitely interested to hear thoughts about where else we might take the channel and other territories. So it's definitely worth you guys thinking about that alongside our formats.
Yeah, so the other thing that we've been trying to crack, which you will all know, the factual format or factual entertainment format, hardest thing in the world to crack, isn't it? So we've had various goes at it, and we've got something that's coming in the autumn called Dating with My Mates, which is Dan's idea, Dan's show. Do you want to quickly tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll have a look at the clip?
Yeah, so I knew that Helen had, they'd tried dating once, and for whatever reason that didn't kind of work out, and I knew they were looking for something else in the dating market. And I had this idea, which evolved actually a lot. I probably had the idea about 4 years ago, and I pitched it as 3 or 4 different iterations to different broadcasters at one point, even to, maybe not to you at one point, I can't remember. But we got to a point where it was 4 friends, all single. They go to a private dining room for a 3-course meal, and for each course they're served a different date. So let's say you've got a group of 4 women who are all single. They have to be friends because, as very W, they need to be. You need to believe in the characters. So the friendships are authentic, and with each course, as I say, a boy would get served to the girls for that course, and then would stay for the...
On a platter? No.
Not quite on a platter, no. Helen didn't let us go that far.
We do call them stars and main course and dessert, though.
Yeah, we did call them that. Yeah, and then basically, we do it for the stars, so we do it for the main, we do it for the dessert. At the end of each course, the dates, the guys get to come back, and it's not always groups of women, as you'll see from the clip we're going to play. They get to, the dates choose if they want to come back and ask out one of the mates on a date proper. But what's lovely about making it for W is that there was no kind of, well, how are we going to get the mates to argue? How are we going to get them to fall out? How are we going to kind of turn the knife? Because that's not what W's about. So it meant that we got to make a really lovely show that is actually celebratory, isn't it? We called it a bit of a love story about friendship, which sounds so wet, but sorry I said it out loud. But it is, and it's really cute and lovely, and we probably wouldn't have been able to make it anywhere else. So thanks, Helen and Hilary, and let's have a look.
Pleasure.
So that's coming in the autumn, and we're excited about it. What are we going to talk about next, Dan?
Are we going to talk about Dave?
Let's talk about Dave.
Do you want to talk about Dave, or tell us about Dave, one of you?
It's seamless. It's absolutely seamless, this session. Dave is our premium comedy channel, but most of what we commission on Dave is comedy entertainment in the studio or outside of the studio, but we do commission factual and factual entertainment shows too, and these are hugely important to us. And in terms of talent, I think we've had a pretty good run at unknown talent knocking it out of the park. As I'm sure you'll all know, Big Zoo's Big Eats was a show that we commissioned less than 2 years ago, and he's now gone on to win 2 BAFTAs for the second series. And that show was commissioned because we briefed that we were looking for new, diverse, unknown talent. That was really important to us. We wanted to sort of change the whole profile of the network, but of the channel too. Getting a broader range of diverse faces was going to be really key, and unknown talent was a really easy but risky way of going about it. And Big Zoo sort of represented in a way everything that we wanted the channel to be in the sort of fresher iteration. He was someone with genuine talent, both in the music and in the food space, with an amazingly fresh and fantastic personality, full of kind of joie de vivre. And he's, he had his 2 best friends, and the sizzle blew us away, and we built with the production team a show which would hero comedians. So the original series had Zoo meeting with a comedian who was doing a gig, and then cooking a meal for the comedian. The comedian and he would eat after at the end of the show. We've gone on to commission a new series, and we've got a clip. I think I'll just play that clip. I think we'll just play that clip first. I'm not going to talk about Zoo for a long time, but what I would say to everyone in the room is we're really proud of that show. And what we're really proud of, I think, is our ability to sort of back new talent. Having said that, a lot of people come to us and say, I've got this guy, he's on YouTube, I've got this girl or whoever, woman, person, and the bar is still very high. The bar is incredibly high. We are prepared to back unknown talent, but we have to all genuinely believe that that person can go the full distance. And of course, we're massively proud and reassured that Zoo has done exactly that. And I have absolutely no doubt that he'll go on to have a huge career above and beyond what he will do for us, which is hugely exciting. And he's actually starring in one of our scripted comedies in the autumn too, which we won't talk about here. Should we?
I was going to say, with Zoo though, like, because the series was all about, it's about him, of course, but it's about the talent that he then cooks for. So you had those big names alongside him, didn't you? Which must have given you a bit more sense of security around it.
Absolutely, I think that's a very fair question, because, would we have done a series with Zoo without those big name comedians? The first episode launched with Jimmy Carr, and it doesn't get much bigger than that. I think it would have been hard, but I think the great thing about Dave is people expect big name comedians to appear on the channel, so you can harness the talent. Now, obviously, that idea has been done, and we're absolutely not looking for other cooking shows with unknown chefs cooking for comedians. We've aced that idea, but I think thinking about how you might, be in worlds or combine unknown faces who've got that real star power with other people, I think is a really good thing for you guys to think about. And while you're thinking about it, we're going to play you a clip from the upcoming series. So this is new, and it's Zoo with Johnny Vegas from Series 3, run brilliantly by Emil, who's also one of our commissioners in the room.
So lots of laughs as expected there. And as you said, Hilary, like Dave is known for being a comedy entertainment channel. So we should probably talk now about what opportunities there are for in the factual entertainment space.
Yeah.
And how important it is to have talent attached to those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I'll quickly say, before Helen talks a bit more about what we're doing in the factual space, is, unusual things. If your starting point is well-known comedians, well-loved comedians, doing unusual, surprising, unexpected things, then you're probably in the right sort of space. Travelogue is tricky, and we have commissioned our own series of World's Most Dangerous Roads, which was originally a BBC brand. We don't normally do that, but actually we briefed out for something in that space, and no producer could come up with an idea that matched the brilliance of World's Most Dangerous Roads. So in the end, we just decided, rather than trying to reiterate it, let's just embrace World's Most Dangerous Roads, and let's actually just renew World's Most Dangerous Roads, make it our own brand, but repurpose it as a series which is just for comedians. So that's what Renegade are now making for us as we speak. That's what they're shooting. So we can take comedians out of the studio. They don't have to be in a panel show or a comedy entertainment show or a location type of show. We can take them somewhere else, and we can have them doing other things. It would be good if people didn't pitch us a load of travelogues. The bar is really high for travelogue, and we are making World's Most Dangerous Roads, which is the ultimate travelogue, which we hope all the comedians will return from in one piece. But I think trying to have and again, we're very much looking in World's Most Dangerous Roads at real world friendships. Once again, this kind of what happens in the real world. How do we take that into our network? How do we reflect that back at the audience? That really is a big priority for us. Yes, I would encourage those of you who have relationships with comedians, who are used to working with them, or who've got those kind of funny bones, to think about where else can we take these people that feels surprising and entertaining, and also revealing, I would say, would be a watchword for us.
Yeah, and other people, not just comedians. There are other big talent, but they do have to be sort of marquee names, because we need to draw the audience over to us. And we know how to do that in comedy ents, so we need to make sure that in factual entertainment we're doing that. We do have factual opportunities early in the evening. At 7 p.m. we've got a blue light strand, and this year we commissioned 3 blue light shows, and they all did really well. One of those I commissioned myself, Cops on the Rock, which was following Royal Gibraltar Police. So there are opportunities. in the factual space. They have to have sort of Dave sensibilities. When you look at all those factual shows, they are, you probably couldn't find them on any other channel. They've just got a little bit of something that makes them feel a bit Dave. So certainly have a think about that when you're thinking about factual shows for us. And we're only in the blue light space currently. But if anybody's got any access to anything that nobody's done before, my email is helen.nightingale@uktv.co.uk. I look forward to hearing from you.
So blue light obviously works for you on W and on Dave, but what's the difference then? What should we be thinking about as producers when we're bringing a blue light idea for you for W and then one for Dave?
Good question, Dan. I think that on Dave you can be a bit. It's grittier. You know, if you watch the Royal Gibraltar Police, we spend a lot of time with drug squads. There's a lot of kicking down of doors. There's a lot of shouting in a combination of Spanish and English, and there's an awful lot of drug busts. And Fast Justice, which was about the traffic cops. You know, they feel much more like those fast-paced blue light shows that you find on other channels. On W, we've just got I don't want to say the word softer, but we have got a much more sort of female view on it. You have to be learning something that is beyond how to deliver a baby, how to get somebody to hospital who's having a cardiac arrest, how to collar a criminal on the streets of Scarborough. You're going to have a little bit more on W that gives you a bit more of a view of those women.
I think a good way of thinking about the difference between Dave and W, if you've got that kind of access, is emotion. You know, I think on W we always require our shows to bring a level of emotion. We want people to, we want the audience to feel affected by it, and it to have that kind of an impact. And I think on Dave we don't necessarily require that. I mean, we can have access which is quite funny and quite not caustic. We're never mean. We're never mean. I would say on any of our channels tonally, but we can have fun. I'm struggling to remember Cop Car Workshop. Yeah. So we commissioned a show back in the day called Cop Car Workshop, which was unsurprisingly a cop car workshop. It was where the cars went when they got busted on chases or whatever. And the guys that ran the workshop were just quite funny. They were just funny, wittingly and unwittingly. They were funny characters, and they were quite blokey, and they were really rather entertaining. So, when we made that show, there was a kind of voiceover that just lent into that in a way that we would never do on W, because there's a sort of level of sincerity that we require on W to engage that audience of 30-something women who are just looking for something else when they're coming to our channels. And I think the Dave badge and the Dave brand, which is a really, really well-known brand, I think it's the most well-known brand outside of the terrestrials for a TV channel in the UK. There's a shortcut for that. People understand that, and people understand that's comedy and not just Top Gear repeats, which was obviously the charge that was levelled at it for a long time.
Yeah. So, do you want to move on to yesterday, or do you want to carry on with Dave for a bit?
Yeah, we've got so many channels, so we're cantering through them. But I think it's probably worth our while talking about some stuff on yesterday, definitely. Yeah,
do you want to tell us about yesterday, Helen?
Yeah, so yesterday is our slightly older skewing channel. It is factual. So it's deep in its bones. We do have talent. Hilary is going to talk about some of our talent shows in a minute, but our absolute heartland is observational documentary, precinct-led, and character. So, character, yes, and process. So our audience likes to see absolutely every step of the process. So we wouldn't simply do a museum. We wouldn't do a behind the scenes at the museum on yesterday, but we did the secrets of the Transport Museum, because that was about keeping those heritage vehicles on the road, and they were, cars, bikes, buses, etc., tanks sometimes. So it's about process. Our biggest show by far is a show called Bangers and Cash, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's set up in these parts, and it's an auction house. It works because it's completely authentic. There are brilliant characters, but there is great transaction. A car comes in, it doesn't look very good, it gets renovated, it gets sold for a load more money. You know, we all know that those things work. But we don't simply do transactional. We also have, for example, behind the scenes at Hornby, model railways, and railways is one of our biggest sellers. The big ticket item is on yesterday is railways, and we have new talent. We launched some new talent in the railway space, which Hilary is going to talk about.
Yeah, so the channel is run by a guy called Gerald, and who's absolutely brilliant, and he was absolutely clear that he didn't want us as a commissioning team to bring him ideas with talent attached. So I would say we probably behaved ourselves for a few years and didn't bring him talent because he relentlessly and specifically said he didn't want any. But I think as those of us, all of us in the commissioning team have been producers, and all of you are probably producers sitting here, or many of you, and I think you're all wise enough to know that, you know, it's probably never a great idea to just do what the channels say they think they want, because actually the truth is that all channels want the thing they don't know about, and if they knew what it was, they'd probably be doing it already. So we work very closely with Brown Bob producers, and Brown Bob make Inside the Ambulance, and Jacqueline Hewer, who runs that company, said, you know, I found this fantastic guy. He's an absolute railway nut. He's called Tim Dunn. He's all over YouTube. He's really popular. Hasn't done any telly. I mean, he might have done the odd interview, but he had, you know, no meaningful telly. And I think he's great. And I said, she said, I think you should take a look. I said, yeah, but you know, we're not going to be able to persuade Gerald that he'll go for a sort of talent-led show. And she said, no, I know, but just take a look. So I took a look, and he was deeply charming, and he had the sort of effervescent level of enthusiasm that I think probably marks out Yesterday talent. You know, I think what people adore on Yesterday are these deep specialists who live and breathe their area, whether it's trains, whether it's railways, whether it's model railways, whether it's toys. You know, there's a million different things it can be on that channel, but it's the sort of level of knowledge and enthusiasm combined. And then obviously that third and incalculably important thing for television, charisma. And actually we've learnt that, you know, those shows that really punch on Yesterday are the ones where talent, even if they are people who happen to be working somewhere in a space like the Mathewson family who run the classic car auction up in Yorkshire, they are charismatic, and that is probably part of its success. It's not just the cars. So we do look at character, not just precinct, even though people don't have to be well known. But we took Tim to the channel, and Brown Bob had come up with a show called Architecture the Railways Built. They were clever enough to know that for it to light a fire in Gerald, it needed to have the word railways in it, because railways just do gangbuster business. And Tim is hugely enthusiastic about the subject. And I think it's sort of fair to say that we did feel we were taking a bit of a punt, because we just didn't quite know whether that would, you know, whether he excited us. It's a bit like Big Zoo. It's a bit this moment where you just get a slightly tingly feeling. You think, God, this person's brilliant. They should be well known. They should be famous. People should know this person. People should hang out with this person. This person is great and is going to be great on TV. And when you find someone like that, it feels like an exciting moment. And although it feels risky, because you never know what's going to work in truth, it feels like a risk worth taking, I guess. And it feels like, you know, it's going to be a very worthwhile experiment. And even if it doesn't work, you're going to feel really pleased that you gave that person a really big opportunity, because somewhere in your bones you think that might be the thing, that could be the one. And I think it's fair to say that Tim has been really, really successful at capturing the imagination of our audience. And he's done another really valuable thing for us, which I think in the modern world, in the way that people consume content and the massive amount of platforms out there, he's a brilliant publicist for his own work. So he's constantly on his socials. He's like Zoo. You know, actually, as I'm sort of thinking about them, they're quite similar, so different, but quite similar in their passion and approach and their sort of direct-to-consumer way that they talk to their audiences on their socials all the time in a really meaningful way that their audiences absolutely adore. That show was very successful. It's come back. And then we had that fortuitous thing where one of the first stories in the first episode of Architecture involved a woman who works for London Underground, doing their I can't remember what that bit of the London Underground is called, but they do tours, and she does the kind of, she does stuff with the public, behind the scenes tours of the London Underground. And she's just a brilliantly, she's called Siddy Holloway, and she's a brilliant, natural, effervescent, charismatic communicator, really to match Tim. So we sort of found one Tim, which felt rather brilliant, and then suddenly there was this absolutely brilliant woman who seemed to be a great match for him. They were one small item together, one story in a secret underground station, a disused underground station, and they developed a spin-off series just off the basis of that one small item in one early episode of that series. So again, I think that always speaks to me. It's a sort of success breeds success. And when you're making something, and when you're in dialogue with a channel about that show and that thing and what you're doing and how it's working, there's always opportunities. And I would urge all of you to sort of jump on those opportunities when you're in that space, because you've got the channels, you've got the commissioning team's attention, because everything is focusing on your show, your success, your joint desire for this thing to work, because you're in it together. And that's the great moment to say, there's other stuff, or what about this, to think about what else you've created during the course of your series or your program or whatever it is, and how do you capitalize on that, and how do you refresh, how do you make it different? We've come up with Secrets of the London Underground, which turned out to be the highest rating premiere of any show we'd ever commissioned. So it was, it was all rather good. I think we've actually got a clip for you. The latest series, which is the second series, is going out now, and this is an unseen clip that I think is going to be from the last episode, which from memory goes out next week.
So that's series 2. Great. So is Gerald now like, bring me more talent?
Not quite.
Oh.
Sadly. I'm not saying don't bring us great talent like Tim or Siddy or Siddy. If you have an idea for well-known talent on Yesterday, then listen, we can always have a conversation. And we will very quickly say, no, don't bother developing that. It's absolutely fine to ask the question, though, of course. There may be some requirement in the future for more talent-led, but actually what you should really be thinking about is precinct-based observational documentary with process. That is absolutely on our brief and on our wish list.
I suppose because you think Yesterday, like we were talking about railways, transport, museums, classic cars, showrooms.
Yeah, exactly, classic cars. We say Yesterday, but we're not a history channel. We're absolutely about nostalgia. I mean, toys, we've just done a brilliant, Emil looked after a show called Scouting for Toys, which is about the buying and selling and renovating of toys. I look after Hornby, A Model World, which is, I'm so ridiculously nostalgic. I weep every time I do a viewing. We're not looking at anything really pre-First World War, and we are not looking for documentary. We are looking for observational documentary, character-led.
Everything's character-led on UKTV, isn't it? Which is great.
Yes. I think it is. And I think that's why we wanted to talk about talent, because, actually it is always about talent, and that could be a big name that we would tend to put above the title. There's no mystery in the fact that, the Alex Jones series has got her name in, ditto Stacey, ditto Emma, and that's important for us. And that might seem like a bit of a cynical play, but we are further down the EPG. We can't rest on our laurels. We don't have those. We don't have those first 5 EPG slots. We need to be able to message to the audience as there's a really good reason for you to keep moving down that EPG to come to us. And those people like Emma and Stacey, and increasingly people like Zoo and Tim, they are brand ambassadors, and I don't say that cynically. I say that in a really sort of approving way, because they love our content. as much, if not even more than us. And that is, I mean, we are quite Kool-Aid about what we do, as you know, and we are quite passionate about our content. But when matched against their passion and enthusiasm, that's what it takes. That's what it takes to create a hit, a successful hit for us, for anyone. But, you know, obviously we're only here to talk about our channels. And that's what we need in order to bring eyeballs and bring commitment to our content. It's vital. You know, the Matthewsons, the auction up in Yorkshire for Bangers and Cash, people queue to get in to that auction house because of the telly, because they can actually go, you know, it's that classic thing, they can go and participate and be part of it, and it's very particular, and it's very sort of nostalgic and deeply British, and, you know, people love it. People go on it's unbelievable. People go on holiday. They've become, you know, megastarrs. In the same way that, you know, the Yorkshire Shepherdess or whatever, you know, these people become big superstars if you get it right. There's a lot to be gained from it.
Talking of big superstars, you've had quite a big name. You drew a big name to gold recently. That's not TX yet, or has it? I can't remember.
No, it has gone out,
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Billy Connolly. So we have a look at that actually, and then talk a bit more about how you got a big name like Billy Connolly on UKTV.
He's so brilliant. I always want to cry when I say that. He's just got such a lovely way about him. That's a really, really different show. It's not like anything. Well, we commissioned quite a lot of different things on Gold last year, actually. We commissioned French and Saunders, sort of reprising their French and Saunders sketch show, which they'd not done for years and years and years. And they did it to celebrate women in comedy. And it was absolutely brilliant. But the Billy Connolly show is really, it's directed by somebody who knows Billy Connolly really, really well. And it's sort of Billy's musings on life. And God, it's a delightful, delightful show. The reason I'm sort of wanging on about it is because if you find something and you go, oh gosh, this is just so different and so extraordinary, I don't know what to do with it, it might be that we want to commission it, because, you know, we don't sort of commission to order. If you have big talent like that, French and Saunders, but Hilary commissioned a Vicar of Dibley retrospective, you know, if you have great big talent like that and you don't quite know what the show is, it doesn't matter, we'll do it with you, you know, we'll work with you to develop that show, because when you get something like that, it's an incredible moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Gold, you know, Gold, just so that you're clear in your own minds, Gold is the home of British sitcom. That's what that channel is there for. So obviously there's, you know, a lot of the best and greatest sitcoms ever written are sitting on that channel, but it's not just that. So the talent, you know, probably if you're thinking about would that talent work for Gold, and people will often say, is this a Dave name? Is this a Gold name? You know, understandably, these are perfectly legitimate questions. Gold talent is probably, but not definitely, someone who's appearing in a Gold sitcom. Now, that might be from 25 years ago or whatever, but those are the sort of faces, that's the world that we're in. It's unlikely, but never say never and not impossible, that you'd bring us an American name and we'd go, yeah, that feels like a Gold show. It's probably a sort of, a sort of a much-loved, you know, national treasure, frankly, which doesn't mean to say they have to be, you know, more senior in age, but they have to have that sort of much-loved, you know, warmth around them, that sort of halo around them for them to be interesting to us. And then, as ever, it's about what are they going to do. I mean, that series, Billy Connolly does, is they've themed, you know, Billy Connolly does kids, Billy Connolly does fame, Billy Connolly does marriage, you know, and it's a way of him talking in a very sort of nostalgic way about his life. You know, he's in the end phase of his life. He's got Parkinson's. That's neither of those things are a secret. So it's a very warm and nostalgic sort of review of all of the amazing things that he's done and the places that he's been and the people he's met and what he thinks about things and what things mean to him. And I think, again, there's a kind of real emotional warmth in that show. It's a beautiful show. If you haven't watched it, I really recommend it. Ian Coyle, who heads up comedy at UKTV, it's his show, and it's a really special show. So, but I think Billy is not the only person out there capable of delivering a show like that that's really special and, you know, feels like a show worth making. I think there are others. You know, there are lots of names. As ever with channels, there are names that they're obsessed with and they want, and we can't always deliver them, or we think there are other people out there. So it's your job to find that person, if this is your world, and think who feels warm and special. Who do I want to spend 5 hours of television with? It's probably a journey, but not definitely. Not everything has to be a journey.
So who do you want to spend 5 hours of television with, Hilary?
On Gold, I'm sort of loath to say names because they're names I want and can't have. So I probably won't say it because I think either it makes everyone in the room try and get them, good luck, or sort of. I think you guys should have those thoughts. We're having those thoughts all the time. Actually, it's incumbent on you guys to have some fresh thoughts that maybe we haven't had. Sometimes your nose is so close against the screen. In our case, that's the screen of sort of commissioning. That's our sort of lens. That you don't always. Sometimes you get a bit tunnel vision about things. So it's a good way of dodging the question. But I genuinely think that if a fresh set of producers, particularly deep factual producers, which I'm guessing quite a lot of you are, that's quite a good prism. I mean, the lovely thing about Gold is that if you win a commission on Gold, we've got proper money there, we've got budgets, you can go to lovely places. There's a sort of leisure about the show, there's a sort of nice leisurely way that you can make those shows. We aired a show in lockdown. I always get the name wrong. Ricky and Ralph's Very Northern Road Trip. Yeah, Road Trip, which was Ricky and Ralph from the royal family. And it was such a pleasurable experience. And actually, when I look at Johnny and Zoo on screen, I think they've got some of that DNA. You can sort of imagine, please don't pitch it, but you can sort of imagine them going off and, journeying together, because there's just a nice sort of chemistry. It's chemistry, isn't it? There's a nice chemistry between them.
That intergenerational thing is lovely, actually. And on Gold, when we obviously want to speak to a slightly older viewer, because that's who's watching watching our channel, because they're watching nostalgic sitcoms from 25 years ago. If you can bring in someone young, Ricky and Ralph was just perfect. I mean, it was the obvious pairing because they had an on-screen chemistry that translated off-screen as well, which is really unusual and lovely to see. But think intergenerational, so it's not just an obvious pairing necessarily. Pairings are good though, by the way, because people are funnier when they're together because they're showing off to each other.
But actually, one of the really interesting things about Gold is we do have an older audience, but we also attract young people as well. What's really nice is young people, and if any of you have got young people in your house, you'll know they'll come and say really hilariously patronising things to you like, oh, I found this amazing show, you'd love it. And it's sort of AbFab or something, and you're just like, oh yeah, right.
Faulty Towers.
Never heard of that show.
Kate Bush can get back to #1 after 30 how many years?
Exactly.
Yeah, let's do it on Gold. So there's room for more Billy colonies, basically. There's room for more Billies.
Definitely, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, God, absolutely. Yeah. Talent.
And like you say as well, it's important not to get hung up on what channel, because, again, you could see that potentially on Dave, although maybe I could, but you probably couldn't. Like, how does it end up on Gold?
Because it's a sort of retrospective of his life. Yeah. He sort of did his own obit, and that's why it wasn't a Dave show.
Yeah, and I guess you're absolutely right, and the reason why I hesitated to answer that is I don't want to say, what I don't want to say is because he's old, he's on Gold, because that's not right. It's exactly what Helen said. It's not about his age.
Hinge
it's about
and bracket.
it's about where he's pointing.
Where his head's at now.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. And now, should we watch a clip of Hinge and Bracket? Have you got that one ready up there? No, we didn't get that far, did we? Sorry. But no, but I think, there's more to talk about, and we can come back to some more perhaps, but maybe it's a good time now to throw out some questions to you guys. Has anyone got any questions they want to ask Hinge and Bracket? No.
Well, we can yabber on.
Yeah. Any questions at all? No one's got, there we go.
What about acquisitions? I made a feature-length documentary last year about an aspect of the Holocaust that's never been covered before, and The Guardian voted it as the #1 documentary 2021. And I tried to reach out to Yesterday, and I just get a blank all the time. So I don't know if they're just not interested, or even if they were, I'd just like a reply saying it's not for us.
Absolutely, and I'm sorry you didn't get that. We have a submissions process, so that maybe that fell through the net. We are not the acquisitions team. We are the commissioning team.
I know that. I'm just sort of saying,
yeah. But I mean, well, we can redress that afterwards. But that would be a conversation with our acquisitions team.
And there's also another series I've got, because I only do feature length, which Tony Robinson is very keen to do. But I don't actually want to produce it. I can't do series. And if you were to be interested in that, would you be able to put me in touch with a sort of lead production company who would kind of take it on? Absolutely.
I mean, we do have producers who come to us with ideas. Dan, do you want to, in another space, talk about that? Because you came as an independent producer, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, initially, the series I've made with these guys have been co-pros, because I'm a small, really barely even call myself an indie, but I'm kind of getting to that point now that I do, and I confidently say it. But yeah, absolutely. If you've got an idea, like these guys won't close the door in your face. You always want to have a conversation about an idea, and if it's not for you, you'll be clear on that, and potentially they will introduce you to producers that you could potentially work with on it.
I mean, you're working with BBC Studios on
Dating with My Mates.
Dating with My Mates. So yeah, I mean, we'll always put people together for the right idea. It's all about the idea. But we don't commission history documentaries on Yesterday. We're really clear about that. If you go to our website.
This is an acquisition, and I know that yes. Yesterday been interested in other things I've done.
Absolutely, yeah, you're absolutely right. In the acquisition space, which is the broader bit of the channel, people are acquiring things which are more traditional documentary. Again, we can just give you the name of the person to talk to after this, promise. Any other questions?
Yeah, this one over there.
Hello, thank you for this, it's really interesting. What about single docs like the recent Myleene Klass documentary, the film that she made about miscarriage? Do they rate for you, and are you looking for more of those types of things?
So we commissioned, as you rightly say, a one-off documentary, Myleene Klass, Miscarriage and Me, and we don't, as a rule, commission single documentaries. We commission series, and we commission series with the hope and the aspiration that we will recommission series, because what we want is shows to become famous within our schedule that we can repeat across the year. That's the aspiration on all of the channels. However, we are interested in marking certain points of the year, whether that's Black History Month, which Helen might come on to talk about in a minute, or Baby Loss Awareness Week. So that the sort of genesis of that idea was that a tape was brought to us of Myleene talking very emotionally and very powerfully for the first time that I'd seen. I think she had talked about it before on her socials, about these multiple miscarriages which sadly she'd suffered. And we were really all very, again, it's the power of tape. So we were all really affected by the tape. And it started a big conversation amongst the W team about our own experiences of baby loss, how it had affected any of us, et cetera, and we felt really committed to producing that 1 hour documentary. But we sort of thought, how do we do that within the schedule? The schedule doesn't really allow that. And we realized that Baby Loss Awareness Week was an annual event in the middle of October, and we thought that would be the perfect time for us to broadcast that documentary and talk about that subject. So that felt absolutely bang on. I mean, this sort of sounds a bit dreadful to say in the same sentence as baby loss, but for the W brand, it made absolute sense that we would get behind that documentary and get behind the issue as well. So that's why we commissioned that single. We have also commissioned 2 singles in 2 subsequent years, this year and last year, around International Women's Day. A different piece each time, one involving the Inside the Ambulance team, where we saw them at home and they talked about, you know, we met their kids and stuff, which felt really lovely because we'd sort of been hanging out with these people series to series in their uniforms, and suddenly we saw them in there, you know, with a cup of tea, with the toys in the background. And then this year we did a special with, Stacey did a special Sleeps Over with a body positive activist, a woman called Harnam. So occasionally there are opportunities. Have we done any for Dave?
Well, only what's upcoming for Black History Month, actually. Is it worth, have we got time to look at that clip?
Yes.
Yep.
So the short answer is we don't really commission singles, but sometimes we do. How annoying. We just have a quick look at this clip, and I'll just quickly talk about Just Jokes. Thank you. I love that got a round of applause. It is one of my favourite jokes of the entire year. So that's an interesting case in point, because we like to mark big moments. We've done Pride on screen. And last year we did, and we've always done International Women's Day on W. And last year we decided we were going to reflect Black History Month on Dave and on Drama, another one of our channels that doesn't normally commission Factual. And we commissioned some what we call interstitials. So they went in the promo airspace, so it wasn't a programme, but I looked after it because it was talent and it was factual. And it was really, really funny. And we watched it and we thought, hang on a minute, we're a bit wasting it in you know, the trailers in between the shows. So the channel director asked us if we would make a show, you know, an hour, if they would, the production company, Doc Hart's lovely Andy Mundy Castle, would make an hour show. So that will go out this October, and it's everything that you didn't see in the 90-second, the 90-second interstitials. It's really funny, really obvious. It has to be funny because it's Dave. But also it's incredibly revealing, and sometimes it makes me cry sometimes because it gets under your skin, and you think, wow, okay, how amazing that people have stood and told us this stuff. So it feels really lovely, actually. So occasionally we will do some stuff, and the reason I tell you that is because sometimes just opportunity just comes from nothing, you know. So always worth pitching our stuff.
Thanks for a question. So it's worth pitching single doc ideas to you. You wouldn't turn people away to.
I don't want to say that, because actually we probably would. I would much rather people think about series. You know, on W we commission in 10 parts. That is our requirements. You know, that is our brief. But if you are pitching to us, we have a relationship and we're in development, which I am with. You know, we all are, with lots and lots of producers. If something comes up, you will know about it. And that's the point. Be in contact, be developing with us, because then we'll go, do you know what? Let's make a special for Black History Month or International Women's Day.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, another one. There's another one just there, please.
In this third row. There you go.
It's like question time.
Yeah. Just a quick one on W. Now that the channel's moved free to air, has that changed the type of faces that you're looking for on the channel? You mentioned that it's kind of broadening out to be more co-viewing the kind of 30 to 40-year-old woman and whoever she might be watching it with. So has that changed the way that you look at talent on W?
No, I would say, in short, no. And actually we haven't. We have gone free to air, which represents an opportunity for more viewers, but we haven't changed our brief and we haven't changed our demo, or we are still an upmarket channel that's focusing principally, but not solely, on women 30 to 40. That is the sort of absolute target demo. What we are thinking more about and talking more about, and we'll update the briefs as soon as we can, is how we extend and expand the world of W. And that's why we commissioned the wedding show, and we are looking for more formats. And it's probably worth us saying that. Formats are hard. Those of you who are in the format space will know that, but we are absolutely looking for more formatted shows to sit alongside, Dating with My Mates, which we've shown you and talked about, that's coming out this year, and so thinking about, getting into the heads of our demographic audience and thinking, if it's a format, what does it feel like? We've all watched the success of, dinner dates, first dates, come dine with me, these are all old titles. It's very hard. I mean, I guess Married at First Sight, the sort of was a sleeper hit, but it's been around for a while. It didn't really catch fire until lockdown. So it's what worlds do we want to be in, and what shows do we want to make? What do we want to reflect? Formats need to feel warm. They can't be huge budget. They can't be big studio shows. They need to be, I think, set in the real world. Yes, Dating with My Mates is set in a kind of in the most beautiful sort of restaurant scenario, but that is the real world, as is First Dates. Even if they're sort of highly stylized, televised places. So I definitely think if you're up for the format challenge, we'd definitely like to hear from you on that.
Yeah, but talent is talent. Our requirement for talent remains the same audience. There's just more of them, hopefully.
You don't necessarily need a name attached to those formats when they're brought to you.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, it's a good point, Dan. If you've got a good format, then we're not necessarily. We for Dating with My Mates, that was obviously a real world, a formatted real world show, and the guys very cleverly got Catherine Tildesley just to do the small amounts of voiceover there was, and she really loved the show, didn't she? And she may tweet about it when it comes out, but she doesn't lead that show in the way that Emma or Stacey or Alex do.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? We've got time for one more. No? Any final word from you two?
I've got a really important final word, which is to tell everyone you're invited to drinks, free drinks, 5 to 6:30 at Cutler's Hall, which is 7 to 15. It's on Church Street. So please do come down. It's normally good fun, and it's an opportunity. All of the commissioning team is here, and it's an opportunity for all of us to chat to you more informally and catch up and give you our contact details, etc. So we'd love to see as many of you there as possible.
In fact, if you do come down and Hilary and Helen are just swamped by people, perhaps the other two commissioner editors could stand up and give you a little wave.
Yes. And Jen, too, our amazing assistant producer. Up.
There you go.
Neal, Jen, and Kirsty. We'll all be down there later, so looking forward to catching up with you then.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, everyone.
you.
Cheers. Thanks.